Israeli army detains Kamal Adwan hospital director, burns facilities and destroys generators. Israeli media reports Israel preparing extensive military operations against Houthis in Yemen. And Syria establishes a checkpoint near Hamim base and denies reports of arrests or incursions. It's 4 p.m. Cairo local time, and you're now watching Q News with Salma Al-Fiqi. We begin today's bulletin with the latest developments in Gaza. The Israeli military has launched a ground operation in Beit Hanun, northern Gaza, accompanied by artillery and airstrikes targeting alleged Hamas fighters and infrastructure. Military spokesperson Daniel Hagari stated that the Nahal Brigade carried out the overnight operation, guided by intelligence. The military claims the offensive aims to enhance security for areas near Gaza. Airstrikes reportedly struck alleged Hamas positions, with the army asserting that civilians were permitted to evacuate during the operation. The Israeli army has detained the director of the Kamal Adwan hospital in northern Gaza, burned sections of its facilities and destroyed all generators, further deepening the healthcare crisis in the region. The Palestinian Ministry of Health has issued an urgent appeal for international intervention to sustain medical services amid the escalating situation. Israeli forces, meanwhile, continue their relentless attacks for the 449th consecutive day, resulting in severe humanitarian conditions and the displacement of 95% of Gaza's residents. The European Union's Commissioner for Equality and Crisis Management, Hajj Al-Habib, has condemned Israeli forces for reportedly burning the Kamal Adwan hospital in northern Gaza. In a statement on the platform X, Labib described the partial destruction of the region's last major hospital as unacceptable and highlighted the forced evacuation of patients and staff. She stressed that targeting medical facilities violates international humanitarian law and called for the immediate delivery of humanitarian aid to Gaza. The World Health Organization has confirmed that an Israeli attack on Kamal Adwan Hospital in northern Gaza has destroyed the region's last major health facility. The WHO warned that the systematic destruction of Gaza's healthcare infrastructure is leaving thousands of Palestinians without access to life-saving care. The attack reportedly caused severe damage to critical hospital sections. 60 paramedics and 25 critically ill patients remain at the site, while others have been evacuated to the already damaged Indonesian hospital, heightening concerns over their safety amidst ongoing violence. Hamas has condemned the Israeli army raid on Kamal Adwan Hospital in northern Gaza, calling it a war crime. Hamas held the Israeli occupation and the U.S. administration responsible for the safety of patients and medical staff. Hamas urged the international community to break the silence and impotence surrounding the genocide in Gaza, demanding actions to stop the aggression and hold Israel accountable. And for more analysis, we now move to Mona in our newsroom.
Thank you so much, Salma. And for further analysis on the current situation in Gaza, we're joined from Cairo by the International Relations Professor Hamid Faris. Good evening to you, sir, and welcome to Qnews. Now, from your point of view, what could be the key objectives of Israel's ground operation in Beit Hanun?
Of course, Israel has got clear plans for liquidating the Palestinian issue as a whole. It never stopped abusing the events of October 7 to do so. So there is a very strong commitment by Israel to blow up and finish everything that's called resistance inside Palestine, because this is an obstacle to the occupation authority in Beit Lahia, in Beit Hanun, in Tulkarm, and in all the areas, especially that the West Bank and Gaza Strip are key objectives for Israel, but the unknown objective by the Israeli occupation authority is to make an annexation of the West Bank, because this is part of the doctrine of Israel. So Israel is trying with its best to eliminate any kind of resistance against the occupation and against the occupation army.
Now, how has the destruction of Kamal Adwan Hospital is, of course, the latest of the healthcare facilities and hospitals that were destroyed by Israel. How did that impact Gaza's healthcare system?
It is not impacting only the health system in Gaza, but it is affecting all walks of life in Gaza. Israel is attacking all infrastructure of Palestinians and attacking the Israeli insistence of keeping their own lands. There is a systematic plan by Israel to target all hospitals, the Indonesian hospital, the Kamal Adwan hospital, and Al Auda hospital. And all the hospitals, Israel is systematically trying to get all these hospitals out of service and get all the health sector out of service. It is the wasteland policy, so as the Palestinians would not have any facility that can provide health services that can sustain their presence on their land. So there is a clear intention by Israel to target the health system by targeting the vital health institutions and everything that facilitates the lives of Palestinians. All the ministries and institutions, universities were attacked. Even the oldest church in the world was attacked by Israel. So Israel wants to eliminate the presence of any person that is still living in Gaza Strip. So it is the general's plan to evacuate Gaza and to empty Gaza of its people so as to have more of a buffer zone pro-Israel in the north of Gaza.
Now, from your point of view, sir, what is the role played by the international community to address the escalating humanitarian crisis in Gaza and the other Palestinian occupied territories?
Let me say that Palestine has been subjected, especially Gaza Strip, to all kinds of torture, genocide, and harassment by Israel. The international community is a partner in what's happening because the international community has been seeing Israel doing everything to eliminate the Palestinian cause. And Netanyahu, as a war criminal, declared this explicitly. And he said that he does not want to have any kind of Palestinian state. And this was the case Israel emphasized in 2018 and in 2024 that there will never be a Palestinian state. So there has been continued aspirations by Israel to abuse the situation in order to fulfill the dream of the greater Israel. And that's why Israel is expanding its military operations to the south of Lebanon and reoccupied the parts of Syria. So Israel has got a systematic plan to fulfill that dream, the dream of greater Israel, and expand the occupied territories. This is all coinciding with the ascendance of a new American administration, the Trump administration. And Trump has always been saying that he is pro the expansion of Israel and enlarging Israel, and this will be on the expense of the Palestinian people and the Palestinian territories.
Could the EU's Commissioner's condemnation of Israeli actions have an implication on the already critical situation?
The EU is capable of changing the course of all these situations because the EU has got a lot of tools that can make the EU capable of changing things. But EU did not use much of its tools to change the course of the war. Now, not on the military way, not on the other aspects. Most of the weaponry coming to Israel is coming from the EU. Germany is providing 30% of the weapons coming to Israel. On the economic level also, the EU is having a free trade agreement with Israel, and it amounts to 50 billion euros. So this can leverage the EU to change things. But on the ground, on reality, few countries in the EU try to do something here and there, but the EU as such has been trying over and over to recognize a Palestinian state, and we know that the most of the resolutions made by the EU should be by consensus, and this consensus was never reached. And there is more of a willingness of the EU to suspend the diplomatic relations with Israel, but many of the European countries said no to this. So many of the EU countries are still under the course that the United States is venturing into on the political level and on the diplomatic level in the Security Council and military-wise. So it's all covering the war crimes committed by Israel. So that's why the EU is not doing the due role it should have played regarding getting a ceasefire in Gaza.
Right, that was International Relations Professor Hamid Faris. Thank you so much for your fruitful insights. And back to you, Salma.
Thank you, Mona. And moving to the escalating tensions in Yemen, Israeli media outlets have reported that Israel is preparing to launch extensive military operations against the Houthis in Yemen with the goal of weakening the group and targeting its leadership in response to their attacks. According to Israeli security sources, Israel proposed to the United States and other countries the idea of conducting joint operations against the Houthis, with estimates suggesting the campaign could last several weeks. The U.S. National Security Council Strategic Communications Coordinator John Kirby has stated that the U.S. will continue strikes on Yemen's Houthis as long as their capabilities remain active. Kirby emphasized ongoing coordination with Israel to minimize damage to civilian infrastructure and casualties. He reiterated that the Houthis pose a real threat to Israeli security by continuing to launch attacks on Israeli territory.
Hit militia group as well as other affiliated groups in Iraq. Initial reports that we're getting indicate that we had effective results on all three targets. Two headquarters.
World Health Organization Director General Tedros Adhanom survived an airstrike on Yemen's main airport on Thursday. The attack, reportedly carried out by Israel, hit Sana'a International Airport, with Adhanom telling Reuters that the explosions were so intense his ears were still ringing. United Nations aid official Julian Harnice has warned that damage to Sana'a Airport, a key hub for international aid workers would cripple humanitarian operations. This followed Israeli airstrikes on targets in Yemen. Harnais stressed the obligation to avoid civilian targets, noting that the airport has not been used for military purposes since 2016. With over half of Yemen's population in need of aid, he also highlighted the crucial role of the Hodeidah port in food imports, emphasizing the severe impact of any potential damage.
It is the location whereby all of the...
And now we move to the latest developments in Syria. The Syrian Military Operations Command has announced the establishment of a military checkpoint near the gate of Hamim Military Airport, which is used by Russia as a base in the rural area of Latakia. The military administration in Syria denied circulating reports about the entry of Military Operations Command forces into the Russian Hamim base in the Latakia countryside and the arrest of several Syrian officers. The Syrian embassy in Beirut has announced the suspension of consular services until further notice. The embassy has urged expatriates in Lebanon to follow its official page for important updates regarding the resumption of consular services. Russian intelligence has accused the US and UK agents of planning attacks on the Russian military bases in Syria. Russian intelligence also stated that the US and the UK aim to prevent stability in Syria and perpetuate chaos in the Middle East to achieve long-term geopolitical dominance in the region. Syria's military operations chief Ahmed al-Shara has met a Bahraini delegation led by the head of Bahrain's strategic security agency Ahmed bin Abdulaziz Al Khalifa in Damascus. Bahrain emphasized its support for Syria's security and stability, pledging assistance in facilitating the return of refugees. This visit follows a series of high-level engagements between Syria's new administration and international officials after the recent political shift, marking significant changes in diplomatic relations. The Syrian news agency has reported that the Military Operations Administration sent reinforcements to the Homs countryside to pursue elements of the former regime and restore security. They also began combating operations in Deir el-Zor. Earlier, the United Nations Security Council called for a Syrian-led political process respecting Syrian rights and sovereignty. Turkish Interior Minister Ali Yerlikaya has announced that nearly 31,000 Syrians have returned to their homeland, marking an increase of about 5,000 in just 3 days. Earlier on Tuesday, Turkish minister stated that more than 25,000 Syrians had returned and noted that Syrians would be allowed to leave and re-enter Turkey up to 3 times during the first half of 2025. The Russian news agency stated that the new Syrian authorities do not plan to terminate agreements allowing Russia to use military bases in Latakia and Tartus in the near future. It added that both sides are negotiating to prevent circumstances such as military operations or regime change from being used as reasons to cancel agreements. Russia aims to maintain the legal status of its base and ensure these events won't void long-term arrangements. And moving on to Lebanon, where we have the Israeli warplanes have launched raids yesterday, targeting several sites in the Bekaa Valley, eastern Lebanon. This is the second time Israeli warplanes have targeted the Bekaa Valley in eastern Lebanon since the ceasefire agreement went into effect on November the 27th. Lebanese media have reported that Israeli occupation forces fired indiscriminately near Naqoura and Al-Mashab in southern Lebanon, violating the ceasefire agreement and causing damage to villages. Earlier, Lebanon called for the ceasefire monitoring committee, including US, French and UN officials, to address these breaches amid concerns Israel might delay its withdrawal. The truce, effective since November the 27th, requires Israeli forces to leave southern Lebanon within 60 days, while Hezbollah withdraws north of the Litani River. And moving on to Russia, where the Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky has stated that North Korean troops deployed with minimal protection by Russian forces have suffered heavy losses. Zelensky claimed that both Russian and North Korean leaders showed little regard for the soldiers' safety, with reports of executions by their own forces to avoid capture. While Ukraine captured a few injured soldiers, they could not save them. Zelensky called on China to pressure North Korea to prevent further loss of life in Europe's war.
Дуже важко поранені, їх не вдалося реанімувати. Це один із
Russian Defense Ministry has said that its forces had taken control of multiple settlements over the past week and launched dozens of strikes on Ukrainian military-industrial. Russian air defense forces intercepted Ukrainian missiles, aerial bombs, rockets, and hundreds of drones. Furthermore, the Russian forces continued to target Ukrainian personnel and equipment in the Kursk region of Russia. And that brings us to the end of our news bulletin, and here's what we've been covering. Israeli forces arrest Kamal Adwan hospital director, destroy equipment, and worsen Gaza's healthcare crisis. Israel plans extensive operations against Houthis in Yemen, targeting leadership with international cooperation. And Syria establishes a checkpoint near Hamim base amid denies reports of arrests or incursions. And this concludes our news bulletin for the hour. And don't forget to follow us on Qnews on YouTube, Facebook, X, Instagram, and TikTok at Qnews EG to stay informed. Thank you for watching, and stay tuned for more updates on Qnews.